Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Alexander Borodin, composer with a musical heart and a scientific mind. Part 2 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
How can we have the heart to witness the atrocities measured out to the animal people? Choose vegan to end it now.
To ask a native resident of the Republic of North Ossetia Alania, how are you? You can say Kuit Kairut in the Ossetian language. I'm Zemfira. The peace-loving people of North Ossetia Alania pray that we all recognize and respond to the desperate calls of our neighbors in need, in celestial oneness. Welcome to our show. Alexander Borodin, composer with a musical heart and a scientific mind, part 2 of 2. We will continue to trace the life and work of this outstanding Russian musician who is known for both his beautiful melodies and his accomplishments in the fields of chemistry and medicine. After 3 years of study and research abroad, Alexander Borodin returned to St. Petersburg with his wife Ekaterina Protopopova in 1862, taking a position as assistant professor of chemistry, and started to teach at the Medico-Surgical Academy. In the same year, encouraged and guided by the leading member of the Five, Mili Barakirev, he began composing his first large-scale orchestral work, the Symphony No. 1 in E-flat. As Borodin considered himself just a Sunday composer and his career and main focus were in the field of chemistry, he did his music writing only in his spare time. Thus, it's not surprising that the symphony took 5 years to complete. Meanwhile, after the retirement of his mentor, Dr. Nikolai Zenin, in 1864, Borodin succeeded him and became a professor of chemistry. Apart from his teaching, traveling around Europe, representing the Academy at international conferences, and translating papers, books, and journals into Russian, his research reports were published in 1864 and 1869. He was also co-credited with the discovery of a carbon-carbon bond-forming reaction called the Aldo reaction together with the French chemist Charles Adolphe Wurtz. Borodin's first symphony was completed in 1867 and premiered in January 1869 at a Russian Musical Society concert conducted by Mr. Balakirev. The work was warmly received. After the second movement, the audience called for the composer and insisted on an encore. And again, after the finale, they called for the composer again and again, the conductor recalled. Although in his first symphony, the influence of German composers such as Felix Mendelssohn and Robert Schumann remained, Borodin's unique style had come through and matured. Without hesitation, the composer embraced the inspiration of Russian music. Assisted by the strong lyricism and lush harmonies for which he had a gift, Borodin transformed the Russian elements into his own language. A Borodinesque quality is unmistakable in his first symphonic endeavor, which turned out to be a significant landmark in the quickly evolving Russian nationalist school. Encouraged by the success of his first symphony in 1869, Borodin embarked enthusiastically on two large compositions: his second symphony and the operatic work Prince Igor. Due to his many responsibilities, his composing activities were always slow to progress, and this was especially true of Prince Igor. He wrote whenever his time and inspiration permitted and even took a 4-year hiatus. His second symphony was completed in 1876. Alexander Borodin was an earnest supporter of the right of access to education for everyone and believed that women should have the opportunity to be trained as physicians, even though highly educated women were unrecognized in the society of his time. In 1872, along with several other professors, he established the first medical course for women in Russian and co-founded the School of Medicine for Women in St. Petersburg. He was also the enthusiastic patron and treasurer of the Society for the Assistance of Students attending the women's medical school courses and devoted time and effort to support this cause by doing administrative work and organizing benefit concerts. Alexander Borodin's contributions to the Academy and Russia were invaluable. From 1858 to 1886, he authored and co-authored approximately 40 papers that featured many important discoveries. Apart from the achievements mentioned, Borodin developed and published papers on analytical techniques for determining the presence of urea and on reactions of amides. Working together with Dr. V.C. Krylov, the two were the first to discover the link between cholesterol and heart disease. In addition, he was one of the founding members of the Russian Chemical Society and worked for the Society for Public Health Protection. In 1874, the 41-year-old Borodin became the director of the Medico-Surgical Academy laboratories. Alexander Borodin not only performed effectively in the scientific field but also engaged dynamically in musical affairs. He became a member of the Russian Musical Society's board of directors, worked for the group St. Petersburg Music Lovers, and oversaw the Medico-Surgical Academy's students' choir and orchestra.
Animals and kids need people to help them and fight for them, as it's always the small and defenseless who suffer the most. Steph Davis, vegan.
Cherished viewers, let's now pause for a moment to hear a brief message. We'll return shortly. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. welcome back to our show on Alexander Borodin, the gifted 19th century Russian polymath. Amid his burgeoning career and social obligations, Borodin witnessed the premiere of his Symphony No. 2 in B minor. The Russian Musical Society planned for the premiere to occur in the autumn of 1876. However, Borodin discovered that he had misplaced the scores of 2 movements and had to reorchestrate them on his sickbed. On March 10, 1877, the premiere finally took place, receiving modest success. After some minor revisions, a performance of the symphony conducted by Rimsky-Korsakov on March 4, 1879 was a triumph. In 1877, while he was in Germany to handle some administrative tasks for the Academy, Alexander Borodin met the Hungarian composer and piano virtuoso Franz Liszt in Weimar. The two musicians had a mutual admiration for each other. After playing together through Borodin's symphonies in four-hand piano arrangements, Liszt commented, "Your second symphony is entirely new. Nobody has done anything like it." He generously introduced Borodin's music to his patrons and fellow musicians, including the influential Countess Louise of Mercy-Argenteau of Belgium. Thanks to the kind promotion and arrangements of both Liszt and Countess Louise, Borodin's symphonies became the first Russian symphonies to be received outside of Russia. His second symphony was titled Eroika or Bokatirskaya, in reference to the knight heroes of Russian folklore. In 1880, Alexander Borodin composed his famous symphonic poem In the Steppes of Central Asia, dedicated to Franz Liszt. The work was originally commissioned by His Majesty Tsar Alexander II of Russia for his Silver Jubilee. It was premiered on April 20, 1880, with Rimsky-Korsakov leading the orchestra of the Russian opera. This toned poem idyllically depicts the grandiose steppelands of the Caucasus, the meadows, the caravans, and the nomadic life. The work's sublime singing melodies transport the listener to a distant land blessed with bountiful natural beauty. The piece was later arranged for piano by the composer. Borodin and Liszt performed it at a private party held by the Polish noblewoman Her Royal Highness Princess Caroline zu Sayn-Wittgenstein. Unlike the other members of the mighty handful, Alexander Borodin was fond of chamber music. Since his early youth, he had loved to play and pen his own pieces. Among them, the two string quartets are notable, especially the string quartet No. 2 in D major. In contrast to his usual slow progress in composing, Borodin completed this work in a few months during a summer vacation in 1881. Many believe that the piece was dedicated to his wife Ekaterina as a 20th anniversary gift to commemorate their first meeting in Heidelberg. The work's glorious melodies overflow with tenderness, warmth, affection, blissfulness, and elegance, particularly in the third movement entitled Nocturne. The quartet was premiered in the spring of 1882. Along with Tchaikovsky, Borodin laid the foundation for Russian classical chamber music. Inspired by the 12th century Russian epic The Lay of Prince Igor's Campaign, Borodin quickly set to work preparing sketches for his opera Prince Igor. The subject was suggested by prominent Russian music and art critic Vladimir Stasov in April 1869. The heroic idea and folk spirit of this Russian literary masterpiece befitted Borodin's aesthetic taste and his interest in Oriental culture. With Stasov's support, the composer studied much background material such as Russian epic songs, ethnographic studies of the Poloetskian tribes who lived in the Eurasian steppe, and many related source materials in order to understand the characters in depth, represent historical context faithfully, and enable him to write a rich libretto for the opera. With his schedule full of engagements related to his work and family commitments, Borodin had to craft the text, music, and arias for this ambitious project sporadically. The famous Polovetskian dances was part of his effort and is now a popular piece performed in concerts as a separate work. In the 1880s, his wife's declining health caused Borodin great stress and worry. In addition to attending to his official work duties, he cared for his family members, friends, colleagues, and students. And all of these efforts took a toll on Borodin's well-being. He once wrote in a letter to his wife,
"In trying to be a Glinka, pioneer musician of the Russian nationalist school, civil servant, scientist, commissioner, artist, government official, philanthropist, father of other people's children, doctor, and invalid, I end up being the last in line."
On February 27, 1887, during the masked ball in a musical party to celebrate Maslenitsa, a Russian spring folk festival, sudden congestive heart failure took the life of this beloved genius at the prime age of 53. Overcome by grief, Ekaterina followed him 4 months later. After his premature departure from the world, many of Borodin's musical scores were found, including his unfinished opera, Prince Igor, and his Third Symphony, whose untranscribed finale was said by the composer to be his finest piece of work. Prince Igor was edited and brought to completion by Rimsky-Korsakov and Alexander Glazunov. The Third Symphony, with only 2 movements, was arranged and revised by Glazunov from the scores Borodin had left behind. In the last decade of his life, Borodin's music was widely celebrated and often performed in Russia and abroad, subsequently influencing up-and-coming composers such as the Frenchman Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel. In 1913, Ravel wrote the piano piece À la manière de Borodin, or In the Manner of Borodin, to pay a homage to the late composer. And in 1953, adapting Borodin's compositions, Broadway produced the musical Kismet. Many songs from this musical have become popular with modern audiences, such as And This Is My Beloved, Sense of Time, Stranger in Paradise, and more.
Somewhere in space, I hang suspended.
In 1954, Borodin received the posthumous Tony Award for Outstanding Musical for the music contained in Kismet. Alexander Borodin remains one of the most recognized and beloved Russian composers of all time. His beautifully moving melodies continue to elate us, bringing comfort and positivity to our hearts and spirits. a quality that is especially cherished during this challenging period.
If you are making war, you'll never see the sun or heaven ever again.
Gentle viewers, thank you for your company today during Alexander Borodin, composer with a musical heart and a scientific mind, part 2 of 2. Up next is Josephine Debelly, vegan, and Franny, the pig friend, a dynamic duo transforming our concepts around animal people right after noteworthy news. May heaven bless humanity as we navigate our way to a bright and resplendent vegan world.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/AJAR.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/AJAR.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/AJAR.
మా కార్యక్రమాలు అందజేస్తున్నాయి అనేక భాషలలో. దయచేసి చూడండి suprememastertv.com/schedule మరియు suprememastertv.com/AJAR